Good morning, everyone. It's 9 o'clock. My name is Jeff Wade. I'm the team lead for community outreach in the natural resource industries for Esri here in Redlands, California. It's my pleasure to welcome you to this third in a series of webinars organized in concert with the Esri Mining User Group. This webinar is entitled Implementing GeoScience Workflows in ArcGIS Pro. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted in the next few days. As a participant in the webinar, you'll receive a follow-up email with a link to the recording and others in the series. I'm confident that many of you will have attended other Esri Go-To webinars in the past, and today we'll follow normal practice of encouraging you to enter questions as we go along in the Go-To webinar questions dialog box during the presentation. We'll answer as many of those questions as time permits towards the end of the session. As you've probably figured out by now, I'll be your MC for the webinar. So now let's go ahead and introduce you to Esri Mining User Group Chairman Chris Franks of Freeport, McMoran, who's speaking to us from Phoenix, Arizona. I've asked him to say a few words about the Mining User Group and introduce today's speaker. Chris, good morning to you while I sort out the PowerPoint here.
Good morning. Thank you, Jeff. Good morning to everyone that's out there and who has taken time out of their day to join us here. My name is Chris Franks. I'm a member of the Esri Mining User Group Steering Committee. And just to reinforce to everyone, the Mining User Group represents the mining industry to ESRI, working to engage them in the development of their software and to support our industry in particular, and also to promote activities that encourage and facilitate communication amongst our user groups, which is what has led to this series of webinars. We primarily communicate through our LinkedIn site, and we actively work with the Natural Resources Group and at Esri to promote a mining-specific track at the International User Conference normally held in San Diego in July. If you've never attended this conference, by the way, I'd highly recommend going to the website and explore the agenda and strongly consider attending. This is the third webinar we have worked with ESRI to produce, and given the topic today, ArcGIS Pro, we are fully anticipating there will be a fourth one coming in the near future. There are many changes that have already been developed with the software and many more coming, and to completely communicate the new capabilities of the software, we thought it would be best to break this up into two separate presentations. Today's presentation is focused on the implementation of GeoScience workflows in Pro, which creates layout templates, exporting those layouts to PDF files, and populating multiple layouts. We're very excited to have Mike Price today demoing and really running with the session and the webinar. And at this point in time, I will turn it over to him for the presentation.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Mike Price. I'm a GIS analyst and former Esri Earth Sciences or mining manager. Years ago, I helped take care of the mining user group. Actually, we implemented it back in the late 90s. And since that time, I've spent considerable time at Esri, and I'm back here today. I'm back in Redlands, and I am going to present to you a workflow for geoscientists that are interested in migrating from ArcGIS Desktop in the version 10 world up into ArcGIS Pro. Now I'm running ArcGIS Pro 1.4, and I'm running Desktop 10.5. But if you're not quite current with these versions, you should be able to do a lot of what I'm going to show you today. And what I want to do today is take you back into the desktop world and show you a training map that we have built for a series that has been available to users for about 5 years now, and has also been incorporated into the Esri Mine training program. And this training data set is built in northern Nevada around a mining area called Battle Mountain. And what I'm showing on my screen right now in layout view is the base map for the training data set. And if you look down the table of contents, you'll notice that I've got a 10 or so layers, and that right now most of them are displayed. However, you'll notice that there's a soil geochemistry group at the top that includes 5 elements: gold, silver, arsenic, antimony, and mercury. And right now there is no link or broken link to the data that supports these. And what I'm going to do today is I'm going to actually import this map into Pro. And when I do, you'll see this same table of contents, and you'll notice that the links are broken. And the next thing we'll do is we'll clean up the map a little bit. We'll add a base map off of the Esri ArcGIS Online website, and we will then go to an Excel spreadsheet, and I will import the background data for each of these 5 element layers. And if you've done any of our training before, either through the Mine training or through some of the ArcUser published trainings, you'll see a lot of the same material that we've used in previous trainings. So what I want to show you right now is a pretty well-defined ArcMap document that we've built for Battle Mountain. And if you notice, the title of this document is rather short. It's battle_MT. The name of the single data frame in this document is also battle_MT. Now there's a reason I'm using short names both for the document and for the data frame. When I import this map into Pro, you'll see that some of these titles for the data frame and the name of the map are actually preserved or translated into Pro. So keep an eye on that. I suggest when you're doing this task, go in and clean up, shorten up names so that they behave well. Now, if you follow work that I do in my training world, this data is all stored in 2 file geodatabases. One is a geochemistry database, the other one is base map data. And these are all projected layers or feature classes, all projected to UTM NAD83 Zone 11 North, which is the Nevada UTM. Now I'm going to go up to File and show you the map document properties, because when you're setting up a map to go into the world of import into Pro, be sure that you set up a lot of these items. If you've ever published a map to either ArcGIS Online or to a portal as a service, you'll know that there's a few things that are required, including things like tags and a summary, and also useful a description, and of course a credit. Since I've actually built this data myself and kind of cleaned it, synthesized some of it, and then posted, I'm going to put myself down as the primary credit for the map. But if you go later into this data that we will post online, you'll see that I also get data from the Nevada Bureau of Mines and Geology and from the U.S. Geological Survey. So I'm going to update this. I've already built a thumbnail, so I'm going to just update me as the author, a credit person, and I'm going to save my map. What this does, it locks in everything that we have here that's going to go into ArcGIS Pro as an import. I'm going to show you one other thing that's really important, and I hope you all use these. It's our bookmarks. Now you'll notice I have 2 bookmarks in this map. I've got a Battle Mountain 1 to 150,000 scale bookmark that shows the entire project. I've got a bookmark for the old Rattler area at 1 to 25,000 scale that shows detail. In Pro, I'm going to go back and forth between these 2, and I find that if you create a few bookmarks in desktop before you even send your document over to Pro, you'll be glad you did, because you can use a lot of these things. Also, there's one item in this table of contents I'm going to focus on later. It's called claims and leases. And this is data that was provided to me by our surveyors, so I trust it for being spatially very, very correct and for having very well-defined coordinate system. I'm going to use that later to borrow or clone coordinate systems for data that I might build. So this is our fundamental startup map. It's stored in, I'm presenting it in layout. I'm saving it in layout, although we could switch back to data view to do more work with it. So I'm going to close this map now. And I'm going to switch over to we as geologists have a favorite quote-unquote database. It's called Excel. Now, if you've worked through any of the tutorials that are online with with our online publication, our training through ArcUser, you'll be familiar with this data set. It comes in as it's a spreadsheet that we teach you in another program how to standardize, and prepare for import into ArcGIS. And we're going to do that today. We're going to import this spreadsheet. We're going to use the eastings and northings of our UTM coordinate system to present XY data. And we're going to use each of these 5 fields over on the right to post analytical data from our assay lab: gold, silver, arsenic, antimony, and mercury. There's a whole series of tips and tricks regarding how you import a spreadsheet into ArcMap, what to do before, what to do while you're bringing it in. So refer to other tutorials for that. We'll give you a list of, or a link to where they're located. So remember, this is our spreadsheet. It's got over 20,000 records, and we're going to import it and create it as a big event theme, save it as a file, GeoDatabase feature class, and then we will connect it up to those 5 elements that are shown in our ArcMap document. Now, for you starting in Pro, or people that are just becoming interested in Pro, I want to show you another document. This is an Esri document that I use extensively because, again, I'm learning Pro. This is a terminology guide, and it was prepared by Esri development staff here. And it includes a lot of help tips and tricks. If you're used to ArcMap, what we call things in ArcMap like a service, a map service, now in ArcGIS Pro, it's called a web layer. I'll show you another one that's really important. In the ArcGIS desktop world, we had dockable windows and wizards. Now we call these panes, P-A-N-E. So remember that. I'll talk about panes, and I'll also talk about ribbons, because we'll have 2 ways to access information and task-driven workflow through our panes and our ribbons. So just remember these 2 terms right now. A pane is an old dockable window. It's like a wizard window. A ribbon is a set of tasks that's typically posted at the top of your ArcMap document. So if you have any questions about terminology, post them to Jeff, and we'll try to answer as many as we can today. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you one more peek at this map. Remember how this map looks, because wouldn't it be nice if this map would come scooting right into ArcGIS Pro, so we can go to work on it, populating or creating these data sets that support our assay soil geochemistry group, and we will then start to do a little bit of mapping with these. So I'm going to minimize my ArcMap now, and again, I'm running Pro and ArcMap side by side, but if I need to go back to ArcMap, I can. However, I'm going to pretty much start a fresh, brand new, blank ArcGIS Pro document. Now this is the startup screen that you might see when you begin Pro. There's actually 2 different screens that come into your display depending on how you've configured your startup. One of the first things you want to do in Pro is you want to sign into an account. I won't tell you a lot about signing into an account, but right now I'm using my primary account on ArcGIS.com. It's essentially my ArcGIS Online account. And when you're working remotely in the field, we're going to have to look at ways to check out these licenses so you can take Pro to the field remotely off the internet so that you can continue to work in the field with Pro. So stay tuned for that one. I don't have all the answers for that yet. Now I'm going to open up a blank template, an empty template, because we're going to import a map. And I'm going to give this project a name, and I'm going to call it, and here I'll be a little bit liberal, I'm going to call it Battle MT, using the same abbreviation for project. I'm really a stickler for abbreviated project names and consistency, but I'm going to put the word Pro after it so that we know this is a Pro project. Now the next thing is you don't want to just save it in your ArcGIS documents area. You want to save this somewhere where you can find it and you can relate it to other data that's going to also support this project. So I'm going to browse onto a training drive here into a folder called Battle Mountain, same abbreviation, and I'm going to save it in that folder, and I'm going to give it a name, and I'm going to call it Battle Mountain Pro. Oh no, I'm sorry, I'm going to back up a bit here. I'm going to save this directly in the Battle Mountain folder, because what it's going to do, it's going to create for me that Battle Mountain Pro full subset. So I'm going to save it right here in Battle Mountain. And it's going to create a new folder as it builds the project. And here comes my new folder with a series of ribbons at the top. And these ribbons are tab-based. While it's building my project, I'll talk to you about them a little bit. You'll see I have a project tab, which takes me clear out to a startup screen. I have a home tab, which has some fundamental tasks. There's an insert tab, which is where we're going to start soon because we're going to import a map. Also analysis, which allows us to bring in toolboxes, and the toolboxes will look quite a bit like what they do in desktop. There's also a view tab where we can change things, and then an imagery and share tab for down the road when we want to use imagery or share this with another group. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to my insert tab, and I'm going to import a map. So I'm going to navigate now on my training drive over into Battle Mountain Pro, the master folder, and inside of there is a MXD file. I'm in Battle Mountain right now. There's my new Battle Mountain Pro folder, and now you see the Battle Mountain MXD file, the one we just looked at in desktop. So I'm going to open that. I'm going to import it right here into ArcGIS Pro. So it's going to take a few seconds, and when it does, if we're really lucky, we'll see just the very same map that we saw over in desktop. Now you notice it said opening layout because it is going to open this map in the same form we saved it, which was layout view. And here we are. We're in ArcGIS Pro right now, and there's our map. If you look at it carefully, you'll see it looks very, very similar. But in fact, this is in layout view. And if you notice up here on the top screen, there's a tab for the project, which is the entire set of tasks and support information for this project. There is a layout, and this icon is that you see just above the -2 ruler is the layout for my Battle Mountain project. But what I need to do now is I need to open and I'm going to have to do something here just a little bit. I'm going to have to downsize my screen a bit so that I can see, and you won't have to worry about this on yours. I've got a bar with some tools on for our webcast that is actually covering up things I want you to see. Over in the upper right corner, I have two items, and these are panes. These are flyouts that take you to panes, and I'll show you the simple one first. Here's a bookmarks flyout or pane, and notice that I've got two bookmarks there, and right away what I want to do is I want to go preview or zoom to my full Battle Mountain project just to make sure it's all there. So now I can see, yep, it's all there. I'm good with that. I'm going to sneak back to Old Rattler now. I'm going to zoom to it, and this is where we'll do a lot of our work today because most of our geochemical data is concentrated right in this area. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add or swap out a base map. But before I do that, what I want to do is I want to switch. I'm going to minimize, I'm going to pin this, and be careful when you use these. Be sure and pin them twice so they don't disappear when you're working with these panes. I'm going to go into project now, which jumped to the top. I'm going to open up maps, and I'm going to actually open up the Battle Mountain map. In other words, what I'm doing now is I'm switching from layout view in desktop back to data view. So I'm going to open that, and notice the second, or actually third item called Battle Mountain again with a map icon appears in my list of tabs at the top of my project. So I've got my project tab, my Battle Mountain layout, and my Battle Mountain map. Now in Battle Mountain map, I fully expand the legend of all the items in this map. Remember, there's claims and leases. That's going to be our reference for any coordinate systems that we might want to use. Here's our soil geochemistry group, and sure enough, the links are broken. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch out. I'm going to turn off my hill shade. I'm going to turn off my bedrock geology, and I'm going to go up, and I'm going to add at the bottom of this stack a new base map. And if you have used ArcGIS Online, you're familiar with many of these base maps. I'm going to go ahead and add the topographic base map. This is based on U.S. Geological Survey topography. It'll come on by default. It'll be turned on. And now we have a topo map with a hill shade. Again, the sun is coming out of the northwest, but it's locked in on this map as a hill shade in the Old Rattler area. Now I've done something really important to this map. The first thing I want to do now is I want to save it. So I'm going to go up and save this map by using a little icon up on the very top row that's a save icon. There's also a Control S, which is a shortcut to that icon. You can use it anytime you've done an important step and you want to preserve that step. Okay, if you're jotting down questions, just go ahead and keep posting them to Jeff. So far we've imported a map. It came in just right. We looked at the entire map, said this is good. We've added a base map. We've zoomed back into the old Rattler. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to add our spreadsheet data so that we can fix these broken links. So I'm going to click on the Add Data item in the Map tab, and I'm going to open it up as a drop-down. And notice all these different options we have. When you're just at your office with no pressing projects, you can go through and just start exploring all these drop-downs and all the different ribbons and just become familiar with what's in them. Now, if I were to add a shapefile or a feature class, I would do it right here with the Data button. But I'm going to skip down too, and I'm going to add event data from a spreadsheet. So I'm going to click on that icon, and notice that a pane, a flyout, a wizard for geoprocessing appears. Now the nice thing about Pro, a very nice thing, is it stores all of your geoprocessing work and it puts it into a special area within your project pane. So it's going to keep track of a lot of the things that I'm doing right here, right now. So the first thing I want to do is I want to add an XY table. Now this table is stored in my training area, and I'm going to have to sneak down and find it. And again, file management is a very important thing when you're working with any of these products. Inside of this training data set, before you build your Pro folder, you'll see two major folders, a GeoDatabase folder and an Excel file folder for tabular data. So I'm going to go into Excel file, and I'm going to go into the geochemistry soil spreadsheet that we've already seen, and I'm going to load the worksheet page that is called geochemistry_soil $sign. The $sign tells me this is a worksheets page or possibly a range name. I'm going to tell it, okay, that's the one I want to add. But before I go, I have to keep working here. I have to tell it once it loads, little drop downs will appear that will allow me to assign the easting as the X field, the northing as the Y field. And if you follow work that I do, I always put easting before northing, X before Y. And then I'm going to go down here and take a look at some other things. There's not a Z field and elevation field that we need to worry about, but we will go with what we've got here. Right now our spatial reference is the Geographic Coordinate System WGS 1984. I need to change that. This data is in UTM. This is a really important step here. The default is geographic coordinates. I'm going to go down and find claims and leases, and I'm going to tell this import to change the coordinate system, the spatial reference, to UTM NAD 83 zone 11 north. Now, at this point too, we might want to think about coordinate systems because we've got a base map underneath here that's posted in WGS 1984 geographic, and we're working in a NAD 83 world for this local map. So we will want to consider transformations at some point. But for now, I'm going to consider that we're working primarily in UTM NAD 83. I'm going to check everything. It looks good. Down at the lower right corner of this geoprocessing pane is a run button. I'm going to click that run button. And when it runs, you'll see down in the lower right corner a status area. And right now it's creating an event theme. And here we go. We've got a whole series of points in the old Rattler area that represent soil samples collected by me and others. And again, don't use this for prospecting. This is synthetic data. So it'll look really good, but it will not find you, I don't think, a gold mine. Notice that the geochemistry soil layer adds to the top of our table of contents, our map area. Right now, it is only preserved as a XY event theme. So first thing we'll do is we'll look at the attribute table. And when we open the attribute table, it typically loads at the bottom of your map. It shares the total workspace area with the map. And sure enough, here we've got our data posting using UTM eastings and northings. And I'll highlight these so you can see them, easting, northing. And over to the right, I've got 5 elements. And again, these elements have all been standardized. There's no less thans in here. There's no not availables. There's no below detection limits. They're all numeric values. Again, a really important thing when you're working with spreadsheets coming into a ArcMap feature class or table. Now we could save this as an ArcMap table and put it into a GeoDatabase, but what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to close the table. It looks really good to me. There's 2,000 plus 20,000 records in it. That's good. I'm going to export it directly from an event theme, an XY theme, into a GeoDatabase feature class. So to do that, I'm going to right-click on geochemistry, just like we used to do in the ArcGIS desktop data table of contents. I'm going to go down to Data, and I'm going to export something. Now here's a trap. Watch carefully. The first option is Export Features. The second option is Export Table. We're going to export more than the table. We're going to actually export the XY event points as features. So select Export Features, and again, we've got to tell our map where to place these features, and you'll notice the geoprocessing pane again appears automatically. We're going to take the soil geochemistry layer and we're going to output it as a GeoDatabase feature class. And again, here's navigating coming into play. I'm going to go into my training area, Battle Mountain. I have GeoDatabase files created in a UTM NAD83 coordinate system. Again, if you're familiar with the way I store data, it's data type with a subfolder for data coordinate system. I'm going to go inside of here. I've got two geodatabases. One is the Battle Mountain base map. The other one is geochemistry. I'm going to put it inside of geochemistry. And I'm going to call it, let's give it a fairly short name. How about Battle _MT _geochem. And here's a sneaky one. I'm going to put an X at the end of this, because one of the things I like to do when I put data into a new geodatabase, I like to code it with the type of data it is. And for me, X means points, like X marks the spot. P means polygons, L means lines. If it's a table with geographic reference, it'll be XY. So this is Battle Mountain _geochem _X. I'm going to save it, and when I do, I'll be able to run this particular geoprocessing task. We're copying features. Oh my gosh, I just thought of something, but we're okay. This is a good time to consider possibly changing the coordinate system. And you know what? I probably should have done that. So let me let it run here. I'm going to rerun it. I'm going to go up to Environments. Oh dear, there we go. Now we can set the output coordinate system right here. We can tell it to set it to claims and leases, and here's where we can set a transformation. So I'm going to show you the transformation. There's a huge list of them. The one that I typically like to use for a lot of my WGS to NAD83 is probably this one here. It's called WGS 1984 ITRF, International Terrestrial Reference to NAD83, and what that'll do is that will make sure that any future transformations that are required are properly referenced. So I'm going to see if I can run it again. And sure enough, it's going to update anything that wasn't fixed the first time. One of the nice things I found about Pro is if I forget to do something and I suddenly get a reminder that, oh heck, I should have done that, I can actually back up and rerun the task. So let's see how this works. So there it comes. And let's see what it does. It's updating now. And here it is. It's still in my table of contents, but now I'm darn sure that it has the proper coordinate system, and I'm darn sure that I've addressed the transformation issue. And believe me, I will forget transformation once in a while too. So now I'm going to minimize or I'm going to minus sign or completely close geoprocessing. It won't be added to my panes on the right, but it's available again if I need it. All right. So now what we need to do, and we're getting pretty, can I get a time check real quick? We've got about 15 more minutes of work here, so we're in really good shape. I'm going to go into my soil geochemistry group, and you remember when you see the exclamation point in the table of contents in desktop, that means we need to fix something. Now you all remember where we stored that point data set for our geochemistry. Let's go find it and create the relationship to do away with all of these exclamation points. Now in the old ArcMap table of contents, one of our favorite tasks was to right-click on a layer in the table of contents, go clear to the bottom of the list and open up properties. We're going to do that right now. Right-click properties. When the property pane comes up, you'll see that it has a whole series of different selections, including a general tab, metadata tab, and a source tab. Now you notice the general tab gives this a name, AU space PPB. That's okay, we'll go with that. That's the name of the original layer that we imported from ArcGIS 10, a desktop. Let's look at metadata. Oh heck. And this is something I'm working on now. I promise you we will have answers. All of this data that I used in my map 10 document that I imported has good metadata. Unfortunately, metadata did not come across, and I'm working to find out why, so stay tuned. This is a dilemma for me. Let's go to the source tab. Now you'll notice here, we're going to look for a feature class. It's going to be a point set, and we can browse to look around and find it. So let's hit the browse button. See, right now it's not too sure where it wants to look. So let's go into Battle Mountain Geochemistry, the Geochemistry GeoDatabase, and you'll see now we've got 3 data sets in here. There's 2 data sets that were built for earlier training. One is some rock geochemistry. The other one is an older data set from the U.S. Geological Survey called the Hydrogeochemical Stream Sediment data set. But we want Battle Mountain Geochem, the point set. So go ahead and select that, tell it OK, and tell it OK again. And we're going to do a little bit of cleaning up right now. Notice in our list of items displayed on the map, we have our geochemistry data as the point file, the source data that we just essentially exported into a file GeoDatabase. We also have the layer file, the original layer that's posted by XY coordinates. What we want to do right now is I'm going to turn these off, but I'm not taking them out yet in case something's not working right. Now you can see the old Rattler Gold data with a predefined legend built in 10. And interestingly, this legend also supported in 10 the way that the process by where you can use symbol levels to stack big gold values over little gold values. So our symbol levels in 10 came right across into Pro. This is really cool because in Pro they're a little harder to build, believe it or not, especially when you're starting out. So what I want to do now is I'm going to go back to my bookmarks and I'm going to go to Battle Mountain 150,000. Now you notice there's 2 ways to get to bookmarks. I can bring them in as a pane item over on the right side of upper right side of the project, or I can bring them in as a bookmark off of the map ribbon. So I'm going to go to the big bookmark, take a look, and here we are. And again, we're not working in layout right now. We're working in map view. So that being said, everything looks good. I've got a whole bunch of points out there, that's for sure. I'm going to zoom back to Rattler. And now, since everything looks so good, I'll do one more thing. I'll see why it looks so good. I'll check out my attribute table. And sure enough, here's my 5 elements over on the right. And if I go to the bottom of the table or just look at the number of elements in the table, I've got over 20,000. All looks good. At this point, I'm going to do one thing. I'm going to save my project. So it's updating my actual ArcGIS Pro project. And once I've done that, I'm going to remove the XY event theme. And I'm going to remove the instance of the data that I exported from an XY theme into a GeoDatabase feature class. At this point, also, I'll close the table. Now, when you work with Pro, always look for these little X's that open and that close things, just in case you want to tidy up a bit. Because right now I've got and again, in my 3 tabs in my project area, I've got a project tab, I've got my Battle Mountain layout tab, I've got my Battle Mountain map tab. I'll stay in map just a little bit longer. Now this is where our project gets a little bit repetitive because I've got 4 more elements I need to fix. I need to fix the silver element, so right-click Properties, Source tab, Navigate. Pro remembers where we were the last time. That's handy because I just need to grab my Geochem X points again. Here comes silver. Tell it OK. I'm going to turn off my gold. I'm going to expand the legend for my silver and turn it on. The silver legend runs from yellow to blue, with blue being high value silver. That's pretty cool. Okay, now let's do the next one. Arsenic, right click, properties, set my data source, Battle Mountain Geochem. It's coming flying right in, tell it okie dokie. Expand the legend, take a look. Now remember, these point sets are all reading from the same feature class. They're just using different fields in my Geochem data table. This is how I set it up in ArcMap, and this was my template when I was bringing data in for this project. So in a sense, this really is a templated-based approach where we actually are able to update this data and repost it later with more samples if we have them. So I'm going to set 2 more references or links to the Battle Mountain Geochemistry, one for antimony, and they're colored in gray to black. There's my antimony, and you can kind of get an idea that the ore body for this area sits right between Old Rattler, and there's an old prospect down here called Bonami Mine where the old timers scattered all sorts of weird samples out on the outcrop, and sure enough, there is dump contamination down by Bonami. And you can see it here with arsenic and antimony. Those are real classic contaminants in Nevada. One more to do, mercury. Mercury's in parts per billion. Now you notice in these items in my table of contents, I will always put the I'll quantify each layer with the units of measure. In other words, gold is parts per billion, silver, arsenic, antimony are parts per million, mercury again parts per billion. So I'm going to fix one more link, again to the same point feature class. I'll turn on my mercury, and let's see where all the mercury is. Ooh, it's all over the place. Old Rattler's got a good mercury signature. And in some gold deposits in Nevada, mercury can be a good signature if you get good assay data. Okay, I'm going to save my project. I'm going to go back up and hit the little save button or Control S, or you can also go project save if you wish. But this is a nice shortcut. So here we go. This is our project. And I'm going to wrap things up now so that you can submit questions. This is part 1 of our 2-part exercise. And we're going to review a few questions, and in the last 5 minutes, I'm going to show you what we do in part 2. And to give you a sneak preview, I have one layout in here called Battle Mountain. Right now, it's pointing at my geochem data for mercury. The reason is, over in my map, that's the active layer that I have visible. If I were to switch it back to gold, I'd have a layout showing gold. Now, if any of you go back to the old ArcView 3 days, you'll remember that we could build multiple layouts in ArcView 3. And we could turn on different themes, different, in the modern world, layers, and we could zoom to various extents, and we could lock the visible layers and the extent into a layout. And we could post those and publish them again and again. In ArcGIS Pro, we have the ability to use multiple layouts. It's definitely there. And there is a challenge that we cannot yet lock a layout to show that we are working only with gold in this one and only in mercury in another one. So we're working on that also. We really would like to be able to make 5 new layouts, one for gold, one for silver, one for arsenic, antimony, and then mercury, lock each of the displays and the extent, and then publish them. And that will be our next exercise. I'll show you how to clone layouts, copy them basically as a template into 5 new layouts, update them for different elements. The legend will change, and the title will change, and then publish them as graphics or as PDFs. So with that, I'm going to save my project one more time just to be really safe, because I've got it set up almost right. And turn it over to you guys for questions. Jeff, do you have questions?
Well, thanks, Mike. Great presentation. Thank you for a super good pace. I hope people who are not perhaps familiar with Pro, as you obviously are, were able to follow along. Of course, we recorded this session so people can refer back to the workflow that Mike just illustrated in the recording at their own pace and so on. So a few questions have come in, Mike. I'm going to kind of feed you the questions, and as we go through the first half dozen or so that are already in, if anybody would like to enter more questions, we'll get through what we can in the remaining time. So here we go with the first one. So Mike, after you've started using Pro, obviously you've been a desktop user for many years. Kind of what's the experience been like? And the first question is if there was a new user and they were just starting out, is Pro ready for use for geoscientists? Would you suggest doing training and starting new users out with Pro, or what's the balance like between desktop and Pro functionality?
You know, Jeff, I've given this a lot of thought, and if any of you, again, have followed some of the work I do, I'm pretty much a fundamentalist. You know, I sit out at the mine camp at night and wonder why in the heck can't we do this a different way? And I'm of the, you know, it depends on the individual. If they've come through school and they've learned desktop, I would say take this approach. Introduce them to a desktop map that they might be using daily or weekly or at least monthly for a monthly report. Get them familiar with that map and then teach them how to import it into Pro. I don't know that if they've already been trained in desktop but not Pro, I would start them in desktop. Now, some of the schools are starting to teach Pro. And if you've already been trained in Pro, then you could probably start building a maps from scratch in Pro. But what I believe is that if you've already been building maps and you can build a high quality presentation map such as this geochem map in desktop, go through desktop processes very carefully to clean it up, make it really a nice map, then import it and take a look. There are still some things in Pro that we're trying to understand that I know that the developers are working on. Two examples are where are my tags and my metadata, and that's number one. Number two is when can we start locking our layouts and using them like we've done in the old days. So both of those we're very aware of. In fact, I've even filed a recommendation on the Esri site to get these layouts lockable, and I'll let you know how that goes over time. So I would say if the person's skilled in desktop, stay with desktop, but as soon as you're comfortable, jump into Pro, import that map.
All righty. So you spent quite a bit of time today. The questions have started to roll in, so I'm going to kind of get rolling on the questions. So you spent quite a bit of time data cleansing prior to importing to Pro. That seems to be a very important step, right? So it's something you need to take great care on.
It's very important. We brought in a spreadsheet today, and spreadsheets can behave very well in ArcGIS, or they can be incredibly temperamental. We'll post the link to the original training in the Battle Mountain series for how to clean up this particular spreadsheet and get it ready for ArcGIS. Yeah, cleaning data is really important. Any kind of documentation that you've been doing traditionally using ArcCatalog for your metadata, for example, building thumbnails, continue to do that on the desktop side because those will come into Pro as well. So definitely clean up your data, make sure your maps are consistent, you don't have coordinate system issues, your bookmarks are well defined and documented. Definitely take a good look, very objective look at your map before you import it.
All right, so I guess continuing on this theme, we're kind of talking about the details here. GP history. Does GP history get written to the exported feature class metadata as it does in desktop?
You know, I'm thinking it does. I'm going to open up right now my project pane, and I'm going to go down through the different. I'm going to share my screen back so you can see something here. I'm going to minimize. I'm going to get set up for everyone here. Hold on. Okay, so I'll be a presenter for just a little bit. Okay, so I'm going to go back in to the project pane, and you'll notice there are about 8 things in here, 8 or 9. And maps is one, layouts is another, toolbox is a third one, just like in our Arc desktop. Down here is geoprocessing history. Remember in 10 we used to go to results to see what we were doing, and we could repeat or clone some of these tasks. And you'll see here that I've done 3 things. I made an XY event layer, and then I've copied features out. And I did copy feature twice because I decided I better take on this issue of a transformation, and sure enough, here we are. And it records all these as part of the task. And what I would probably want to do now is go back in with my old-fashioned ARC catalog and look at these and be sure that it tracked all of these task parameters. So my bet is that yes, it does. It definitely records it in your project. So be sure and save your project often to lock these in. In fact, my typical geoprocessing workflow is run the process, check the process, and then save the map. In case something goes horribly wrong, I can kill the map without saving the process and then start again. But so yeah, we'll keep an eye on that. I'll let.
So Mike, if you stay presenting for a second, maybe you're staying in presenter mode is a good idea. There's a couple of, since you mentioned the word repair, a couple of questions came in on about repairing, particularly repairing layers in ArcMap, you know, by clicking on them and repairing the data source. What tools have you found so far to repair data sources, and kind of, if you do it with one, can you do it to others? You know, you assume a sequence and so on. How have you found it? Yeah.
What I've been doing so far is repairing them one at a time. The way this data spreadsheet came in, the naming conventions were such that I couldn't repair them all at once. But that's one of the things I want to experiment with, is to make sure that when we repair one, it'll fix all of the other layers or broken links to layers that are in the same GeoDatabase. So I don't have a final answer for that. I know in this process you saw me fix it 5 times, and that was because I had to respect different naming conventions. But I would hope that eventually we'll get to the point where we can use a global repair, or at least a GeoDatabase wide repair to fix broken links.
Alrighty. Another question about geodatabases, where the data may be coming from. How about geodatabases that are created in different versions of ArcGIS? I know you introduced at the beginning where you were coming from on desktop, but have you looked at previous versions, and is it easy to bring stuff over from different versions? I think you were working from 10.4 desktop, as I remember.
Yeah, actually, yes, good question. I'm in 10.5 and ArcGIS Pro 1.4. You can typically import up. In other words, you can bring in a 10.2 file geodatabase and push it into 10.5 desktop, or bring it into Pro. It's tougher to go backwards. In fact, you brought up a good point, because when I save this as a training set, I'll probably save it back down to 10.3 so that we have the original earlier version GeoDatabase available, because there are problems when you're running earlier geodatabases and you're running an earlier version of ArcMap and you try to open a 10.5 geodatabase. You will hit the wall. It won't work.
Okay. Have you experienced any lockup? A couple of people have experienced when they try to bring in MXDs into Pro, the system locking up, or is that an experience that you found, or any experience with that, or is that peculiar to a couple of users?
You know, the lockups are awfully frustrating. I've had very few in Pro. But again, I have more in 10.x, but I haven't started to use some of the really sophisticated tools yet. And as I do, I'll keep an eye out for them. But I've had very few system lockups in Pro. If you're having trouble bringing in an ArcMap document, what I would recommend is simplify it. If you're bringing in 3 or 4 data frames, make a separate ArcMap document for each data frame, because you can import again and again and again. That way you can bring in one data frame from 10.x, check it out, save your project, go out and import the next data frame as a different MXD. So if you're having lockup troubles, start with simpler MXD documents.
Okay. Well, I guess a continuation question about bringing data or interfacing data with other applications. A couple of people have asked questions about interfacing with Datamine or Vulkan. I'm sure many other packages are of interest too. So you're obviously started to experiment with data interchange. import and export, and presumably there's opportunities with web services between other applications. Have you started to experiment with that at all yet? Or maybe that's a feature of
I have
of a webinar down the road.
very much down the road. I've started to talk with some of the third-party developers, like some of the GeoSoft staff, and I'm good friends with Vulcan and all those others too. So I need to go out and start talking with them. I'm going to show you where most of the analysis tools are easily accessed right now. Up on my ribbon set, there's a tab called Analysis. And I've just opened up the Analysis ribbon. There's some simple default analysis here, like intersects and buffers, as we've often seen in previous desktop deployments. You can also build some of your own tools, but here's the toolbox. I'm going to open it up, the main geoprocessing toolbox, just so you can see it. And let's see here. I better back up a bit. I don't have it where I can get to it right now. I've got ready to use tools, and I've got a generic tool area. I would imagine that as we build these interfaces to other mining and earth science software, that they'll start to drop into these toolbox areas here on my taskbar, so that they would be available. But right now, I don't know of any other developer that's really pushing to get materials into Pro. But again, I'm sure willing to stay on top of that and see who's doing what on different sides of the software issues. So sorry,
Okay,
go ahead.
I got it, Mike. Thanks for that. A couple of other questions came in about editing. How does ArcPro and ArcMap interact when editing the data set? I guess the question is in reference to the experience. Maybe is the experience similar when editing data sets in desktop and in Pro? Have you found any big differences there? Or?
I'll have to defer that. I've not done a lot of editing in Pro, and in fact, minimal editing. I typically still do my editing in desktop. And I apologize, I'm still an old back office production guy. But no, that's a good question. How can we interface these? And also, when you're doing concurrent editing with a standard or advanced ArcGIS license, how these edits will behave when you're editing? One person might be editing in desktop, the other one in Pro. So let's defer that or talk about it offline and get some more material ready for our users.
And one more about interaction again. Obviously you were using a base map today that that has come from data sources from various places. Have you experimented much yet with linking back to ArcGIS Online and using ArcGIS Online services? Have you found the experience different in Pro than from desktop, or is it early days yet?
It's a lot like ArcGIS Online. In fact, yes, I have done that. One of my favorite is watching stream gauging stations in real time for areas that are getting washed away by the flood. And yeah, it's pretty neat. You can build a really nice base map of your own, or a project map, and then attach to a service on ArcGIS Online, and at least when you have internet access and have live access to data. It's actually, that's one of the big pluses of Pro, and I haven't shown that here today. But I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's one thing I do have a lot of fun with.
And Mike, there's a question that we might defer this one, because this is a community call rather than a call about licensing. But let's ask your experience about licensing. When you're a desktop user, so you got a copy of Pro. Obviously, yours came from Esri Direct for the purpose of this webinar, but users, of course, get access to Pro with their desktop licenses in a certain ratio and so on. But what's your experience with using Pro? If you're a user with desktop licenses and you've got a few Pro licenses now, you'd recommend starting to use those and get used to it and make an evaluation as you go along with that experience?
Sure. Actually, when you license Esri product at the the basic level, the standard level, or the advanced level, your license is shared between desktop in the version probably 10 world and Pro. So you'll have a license for ArcGIS that will run both a desktop install and a Pro install. And I run them side by side on a computer, same computer all the time, and no problem. But again, if you're using concurrent licensing, you'll probably want to work with your license manager to make sure that you're able to share properly, and especially if you get into editing, be able to edit concurrently.
Alrighty. Well, I think we're getting there with the questions. If anybody has any other questions, now would be a time to drop them in, because we've got 3 or 4 minutes left. Let me see if I covered most of the ones that were answered. Chris, if you're still on the line, would you have any comments in conclusion of this webinar while I look through the questions here?
Thanks, Jeff. Mike, thank you very much for the presentation. Would you just take like a minute and kind of review like the part 2 of what people can expect in the next portion in our next webinar that's upcoming? Thanks.
You bet. Hold on here. I'll bring up a PowerPoint. I've done all this live today, but here are some screens from a future presentation. I'll run through them quickly. This is part 2. This is where I'm going to teach you how to create a layout template and then clone that and create at least 5 more layouts for this particular project. So you learn how to create the layout template, you use the template to prepare and populate these multiple layouts, and then from there it's quite fun, pretty what we're used to. You export these to PDFs or to other graphics, and then you can import those into PowerPoint or into a presentation report. And the steps are pretty simple. First, you check out your layout. Again, always check it out before you proceed. Next step is you copy the layout template, and you'll notice here on my slide the project pane is open. You go into the layout area and you copy the Battle Mountain layout. And then here's the fun part. You jump back up to the layouts item and you can paste it 5 times. And once you get them pasted in there, they're going to be called Battle Mountain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Individually, you open them and watch the top of my project area. Another tab will show up, a Battle Mountain 1 tab. At this point, I rename it. This is going to be gold, so I call it Battle Mountain AU. And then I go in and I change the text, Battle Mountain Area, Nevada, 3rd line AU space PPG. That's the title block. And when you apply that, you do that for all 5. And then finally, you get to export it. Again, through the project layouts area, you right-click on a layout and you export it. In this case, I'm exporting it as a PDF. And I go through all 5 of them. That was gold. Here's Mercury. And when you're all finished, here we are in my favorite file browser, Windows Explorer. I'm showing all 5 of them with the gold layout as a preview in a Windows file manager. So it's pretty straightforward. Again, the secret is cleaning it up, making sure the titles, your legends behave well, your titles are properly populated, and your layout is properly named. And that's what we'll teach in the next one. So if that's of interest, stay tuned. We'll tell you more.
Thank you very much, Mike, and again, thank you for coming on and getting into this topic with us. We certainly appreciate it as a mining user group. Appreciate your time and the effort that's gone through to this. Jeff, closing comments?
Just a couple of last comments that came through about, obviously the reason we started this series is ArcGIS Pro is the new desktop development environment for Esri. That's where all the R&D effort is going. So somebody asked the question about eventual replacement by Pro of desktop, and well, certainly the R&D effort is going into Pro. So when there is a full capability in Pro, we hope that many people will pick up Pro in preference to desktop, but we realize that it needs to be completely there, and that's why we're asking Mike and others to press very, very heavily on the workflows to make sure that full capability is there in Pro before we strongly suggest that people swap over. So Mike, thank you so much for your effort today. I'm sure people really benefit from the detailed workflow that you ran through. We look forward to the next iteration of the webinars. This one is recorded and they'll be available to everybody that subscribed today. So Chris, thank you for facilitating through the mug. Mike, thank you for your effort here. And to everybody on the line, thank you for your attention. And we'll see you next time. All the best.
And thank you too, everyone. It's been great. Stay tuned. We'll do more. Bye-bye.